In 1589, a German farmer named Peter Stumpp confessed under torture to murdering and eating 14 children after transforming into a wolf. But here's what's really interesting. Nearly identical confessions were extracted from accused werewolves in France, Estonia, Poland, and across Europe during the same period. And these trials weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a pattern that stretches back thousands of years across cultures that had zero contact with each other. Ancient Mesopotamians in 2100 BC described the same transformation process as medieval Europeans. Pre-Columbian Native Americans developed werewolf legends with nearly identical details to Norse berserkers. The full moon trigger, the silver vulnerability, the curse transmission through bites, all with zero cultural exchange. Welcome to Arnie's Brain Train. I'm your host, Alex Arnold, and today we're looking at one of humanity's most persistent mysteries. But before we get into that, let's address the big issues that I know some of you will have. First, some of you are going to see AI artwork in this video and not like that very much. Oh no, a computer made that image, I'm so offended. Cool. Feel free to draw me 50 historically accurate depictions of medieval werewolf trials by hand, and I'll use those instead. Until then, we're using AI images and we're moving on. Also, let's be real. Some of you are going to disagree with my conclusions in this video. Maybe you think I'm too skeptical, maybe you think I'm not skeptical enough, maybe you'll think I missed some obvious explanation. And you know what? I genuinely don't care. This channel isn't a democracy. I follow the evidence wherever it leads. I cite my sources so you can fact check everything, and I don't adjust my conclusions based on what makes people comfortable. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to work. Why do civilizations separated by oceans and millennia all independently develop the same detailed transformation mythology? All of my sources are linked below in the pinned comment or in the description. Don't trust me, check the evidence yourself, and let's roll. So let's talk about the pattern. The werewolf legends appear everywhere, and I don't mean like lots of cultures have shapeshifter myths. I mean specific detailed accounts of humans transforming into wolves with matching elements across cultures that never made contact. Ancient Mesopotamia, 4,000 years ago, had the Uradim, men who transformed into savage wolf demons. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest written stories, describes the goddess Ishtar turning a shepherd into a wolf. Ancient Greek had King Lycaon, who Zeus transformed into a wolf around 400 BC for serving in human flesh. The Romans documented werewolf beliefs extensively. Petronius, writing in the 1st century AD, described a soldier who stripped naked, urinated in a circle around his clothes, and transformed into a wolf. In medieval Europe, between 1450 and 1650, tens of thousands were executed as werewolves across France, Germany, Switzerland, and Eastern Europe. Norse cultures had the Ulfhetnar, wolf-skinned warriors who fought in trance states. Slavic peoples had the Volkodlak. Native Americans had skinwalkers and Wendigo legends. West Africa had the Bauda, humans who transformed into hyenas. China had wolf demon folklore spanning millennia, and the Aztecs had Nahual, shapeshifters taking wolf forms. Now here's the question. It's not whether these legends exist, but it's how they match. Pre-Columbian Americans developed werewolf legends identical to medieval Europeans with no contact. The ancient Mesopotamians described the same transformation process as Norse berserkers 3,000 years later. The mainstream explanation, universal human psychology, fear of predators, doesn't account for the specific details that repeat. Full moon triggers, loss of human consciousness, superhuman strength, silver vulnerability, and a curse transmission through bites. These are not just vague monster stories. These are detailed, specific mythologies repeating across unconnected civilizations. So, either it's the most improbable coincidence in human history, or something else explains the pattern. So now, let's take it back to where it all began, with the oldest documented accounts. The earliest werewolf stories can be found in ancient Mesopotamia 4,000 years ago. Dr. Matthew Suriano's research on ancient Near Eastern demonology documents Mesopotamian texts from the Old Babylonian period. They describe the Uradim, literally wolfman in Sumerian, a demonic entity that could possess humans and cause them to behave like savage wolves. But the Epic of Gilgamesh gives us even more detail. In Tablet 6, the goddess Ishtar tries to seduce Gilgamesh. He rejects her by listing all the terrible fates that she's inflicted on previous lovers. One of them was a shepherd she had loved, who she transformed into a wolf, and then his own shepherd dogs tore him apart. This is around 2100 BC, and already we have the key elements: human to wolf transformation, loss of human recognition, and violent consequences. Now fast forward to ancient Greece. The Lycaon myth appears in Ovid's Metamorphoses from 8 AD, but it references much older oral traditions. Lycaon, king of Arcadia, tests Zeus by serving him human flesh. Zeus transforms him into a wolf. Here's the description from Ovid's text. His clothing changed to hair, his arms to legs. He was a wolf, but kept some human trace. Notice what's happening here. The transformation isn't complete. The werewolf retains human consciousness or human features. This detail repeats in later accounts as well. The Greek physician Marcellus of Cyde, writing in the 2nd century AD, described lycanthropy as a medical condition. Patients believed that they were wolves, roamed the graveyards at night, howled, and attacked people. He was trying to rationalize the phenomenon medically, documenting something that people were experiencing or witnessing. So, the pattern emerges. Transformation triggered by ritual, curse, or divine punishment. Partial retention of human consciousness or features. Violent behavior towards humans, and specific remedies or protections against transformation. By the time we reach medieval Europe, these patterns become the basis for legal proceedings and mass executions. Between 1450 and 1650, tens of thousands of people were accused, tried, and executed as werewolves. Not witches, werewolves. Courts across France, Germany, Switzerland, Estonia, and beyond conducted formal trials where accused individuals confessed to physically transforming into wolves and committing murder. The most extensively documented case is Peter Stumpp, tried and executed in Bedburg, Germany in 1589. According to the trial records which we have, Stumpp confessed to murdering and eating 14 children over 25 years. He claimed a magical belt that had been given to him by the devil allowed him to transform into the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled like fire, a mouth great and wide, with most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body, and mighty paws. The court records describe how Stumpp would stalk the countryside in wolf form, attack victims, and then return to human form afterward. Under torture, he provided detailed descriptions of his murders, named victims, and described the locations of their remains, information that matched unsolved disappearances in the region. Now, before you dismiss the evidence as superstition and torture-induced false confession, which it likely was, the Stumpp case wasn't isolated. In the Franche-Comté region of France between 1598 and 1600, over 100 people were condemned as werewolves. In Estonia between 1650 and 1700, werewolf trials outnumbered witch trials. And here's what's interesting. Multiple confessions describe identical transformation methods. Removing all clothes, applying a magical ointment, or wearing an enchanted belt, transformation triggered at night, especially during full moons, loss of complete human consciousness, uncontrollable urges to hunt and kill, and a return to human form at dawn, often with injuries sustained while in wolf form appearing on the human body. The ointment detail appears repeatedly as well, and when modern scholars analyzed historical recipes for these werewolf ointments, they found psychoactive substances, belladonna, henbane, and mandrake, plants containing tropane alkaloids that cause hallucinations, delirium, and violent behavior. Dr. Yasmine Biel-Rivaya's 2020 study explores how these substances could have induced dissociative states where people genuinely believed that they had transformed. But here's the problem with purely pharmaceutical explanations. The trial records document witnesses claiming to see the transformations, not just the accused claiming they transformed, other people claiming that they witnessed it. So, we're dealing with either mass hallucination, mass lying, or something that doesn't fit our current understanding. The medieval werewolf trials eventually declined as the Age of Enlightenment took hold, but the belief system didn't disappear. It persisted in rural communities across Europe well into the 19th century. And it wasn't just Europe. So let's look at what was happening in other parts of the world besides Central Europe, because this is where the universal human psychology explanation starts to break down. Norse and Germanic cultures had the Ulfethnar, literally wolf-coded, warrior cults that are documented in the Volsunga saga and other Old Norse texts from the 13th century, describing much older traditions. These weren't legends about monsters, but rather historical accounts of warrior societies. These warriors would work themselves into berserker states before battle, believing that they transformed into wolves. The Ynglinga saga describes how Odin's men went without mailcoats and were frantic as dogs or wolves, and bit their shields, and were as strong as bears or bulls. Men they slew, and neither fire nor steel could deal with them. And we have physical evidence. Skeletal remains found at Viking burial sites show warriors interred with wolf pelts, wolf teeth, and wolf bone incorporated into armor and weapons. And these weren't merely symbolic, as the 12th century Icelandic legal code Gragas even contains provisions for prosecuting men who go about as wolves. Now let's cross the Atlantic. Native American cultures across North America, from the Navajo in the southwest to the Algonquin peoples in the northeast, have skinwalker traditions. The Navajo Yinarlushi, literally with it he goes on all fours, are witches who wear animal skins to transform. The Wendigo of Algonquin legend is a cannibalistic spirit that possesses humans, often depicted as part human, part wolf, or caribou. Anthropologist William Jones documented Ojibwe werewolf legends in 1905. He recorded stories that were identical in structure to European werewolf tales. Humans transforming into wolves through curses or malevolent magic, attacking their own communities, and then being hunted by warriors who had to use special weapons or rituals to kill them. Jones collected these accounts from elders who insisted that the traditions predated European contact by centuries. What about Africa? The Bauda of Ethiopia and the Greater Horn of Africa region are humans who transform into hyenas, essentially the African version of werewolves. According to Jacques Mercier's 1979 work, Ethiopian Magic Scrolls, the Bauda transformation involves blacksmiths who can shift into hyenas at night, rob graves, and attack humans. The belief is so persistent that even in recent decades, there have been reported cases of people accused of being Bauda. And the details match European accounts as well. Transformation at night, loss of human consciousness, return to human form at dawn, transmission of the curse through bites or heredity, and vulnerability to specific protective measures. Slavic regions have the Volkodlak, or Vukodlak, literally wolf's hair. Serbian folklore describes these as people cursed to transform into wolves, often as divine punishment. Bulgarian traditions hold that Volkodlaks are created when a person is born with a caul or dies violently. East Asia has its own versions as well. Chinese folklore includes wolf demons that can possess humans. Japanese folklore has less common wolf spirits called okami that can possess people as well. The transformation process involves similar elements: loss of self-control, superhuman abilities, and nocturnal activity. Pre-Columbian Mesoamerica had the Nahual, shapeshifters documented extensively in Aztec and Maya codices. The Florentine Codex, compiled in the 16th century from indigenous sources, describes Nahuali, who could transform into jaguars, eagles, and wolves. These were considered a real ability possessed by powerful sorcerers. So here's the synthesis. We have geographically isolated cultures on every inhabited continent developing werewolf or werewolf-adjacent legends with matching specific details. The academic explanation is evolutionary psychology. Humans fear predators, so we create predator transformation myths. But that doesn't explain why the transformation triggers match. It doesn't explain why the silver vulnerability appears across cultures. It doesn't explain why the curse transmission method is consistent. And werewolf sightings continue into the modern era with surprising consistency. So, what's the explanation? Alright, now this section is long, so hold on to your pants. We've established that the pattern exists across cultures and millennia, but now comes the hard question. Why? What actually explains this supernatural experience? Well, let's walk through the major theories, their evidence, and their problems. Theory number 1, medical and psychological explanations. The most mainstream academic approach is that werewolf legends stem from misunderstood medical conditions. Clinical lycanthropy is a real psychiatric disorder where patients believe that they're transforming into animals. It's documented in modern medical literature, A 1988 study in the journal Psychological Medicine by Dr. Paul Keck analyzed 20th century cases of patients who exhibited werewolf delusions, often associated with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or severe depression. Then there's rabies. Dr. Juan Gomez Alonso published a compelling theory in the journal Neurology in 1998, arguing that rabies epidemics could explain werewolf legends. Think about it. Rabies causes aggression, hypersexuality, hydrophobia, which causes fear of reflections, facial spasms that expose teeth, and an urge to bite. Rabid patients historically and commonly were bitten by wolves, then exhibited wolf-like behavior and could transmit the condition through bites, perfectly matching werewolf transmission mythology. There's also porphyria, a rare genetic disorder that causes photosensitivity, can cause body hair growth, and in severe cases causes gum recession that could make teeth appear fang-like. And we already talked about the psychoactive ointments. Belladonna, henbane, and mandrake containing tropane alkaloids that cause hallucinations, delirium, and loss of impulse control. But here's what these medical explanations don't address. Why do the hallucinations and delusions take the same specific form across cultures? Schizophrenic delusions vary wildly between individuals and cultures. Why would clinical lycanthropy consistently produce wolf transformation beliefs rather than bird, bear, or fish transformations? Why did the specific ritual elements appear in cultures that couldn't have shared this knowledge? Medical explanations account for individual cases, but they don't explain the cultural universality. Theory number 2, warrior cults and ritual practices. A more anthropological approach suggests that werewolf legends originated from actual human warrior societies that ritually adopted wolf identities. We know the Ulfethnar and berserkers existed. Archaeological and historical evidence confirms wolf warrior cults across Norse and Germanic cultures. The theory goes like this. These warriors would consume psychoactive substances, possibly including Amanita muscaria mushrooms, which grow throughout Europe and cause dissociative states. They would wear wolf pelts and work themselves into trance states where they fought with seemingly superhuman ferocity and diminished pain response. Enemy armies encountering these warriors genuinely believed they were fighting wolfmen. Dr. Dominic Wilkinson's research on berserker pharmacology, published in Primitive Warfare, examines evidence for substance use in Norse warrior cults and finds credible support for the theory that these were deliberate altered state practices. But this theory has problems. It might explain Norse and some European traditions, but it doesn't explain similar myths in cultures without documented warrior cult traditions. It doesn't explain non-warrior werewolf cases, farmers, shepherds, women accused of being werewolves, and it doesn't explain modern sightings. Theory number 3, cryptozoological possibilities. Now we enter territory where most academics refuse to engage seriously. What if some werewolf accounts document real, unexplained creatures that don't fit current zoological catalogs? Consider the Beast of Gévaudan case from 1764 to 1767 in south central France. Over 3 years, something killed between 60 and 100 people in the former province of Gévaudan. The attacks were documented extensively by government officials, clergy, and military personnel. King Louis XV sent professional wolf hunters, and thousands of soldiers were deployed. Eyewitness descriptions describe a wolf-like creature much larger than normal wolves, with reddish fur, an unusually broad chest, and extraordinary strength. According to surviving records collected by French historian Jean-Claude Damam, some witnesses described the creature standing on its hind legs. Eventually, a local hunter named Jean Chastel killed a large wolf. The attack stopped. The official story says that it was just an unusually large wolf, but the physical descriptions, the attack patterns, and the number of victims don't match normal wolf behavior. Wolves rarely attack adult humans. They certainly don't systematically hunt and kill people over a 3-year period. Now jump forward to Wisconsin, USA, 1980s to 1990s. The Beast of Bray Road, sightings near Elkhorn, Wisconsin, involved multiple witnesses reporting a wolf-like creature walking on its hind legs. Linda Godfrey, a journalist who investigated the sightings for The Week newspaper, documented testimony from police officers, animal control officers, and other professionals. Her book, The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf, compiles these accounts. Witnesses describe a muscular bipedal creature 6 to 7 feet tall with wolf-like features. Tracks were found but didn't match known animals. Hair samples were collected but never conclusively identified. And if you've seen any of my previous videos on anomalous phenomena, you know that werewolf-like creature sightings have also been reported at locations like Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, a place that we've covered before just briefly, but that's known for its concentrated paranormal activity, including UFO sightings and unexplained animal encounters. The pattern of credible witnesses reporting things that don't fit our current understanding keeps showing up across different types of phenomena. Here's where the evidence becomes uncomfortable for mainstream zoology. These modern sightings share specific details with medieval accounts. Bipedal posture, size and strength beyond normal wolves, and behavior that doesn't match wildlife patterns. Multiple credible witnesses and physical traces that can't be identified. The cryptozoological theory suggests that maybe something exists that we don't have a category for. Not supernatural werewolves, but some unknown species, rare genetic anomaly, or phenomenon that produces wolf-like bipedal creatures. The problem with this theory is that it requires accepting that something this significant could remain undocumented by modern science. But it's worth noting that new large mammal species are still being discovered. The Saola in Vietnam wasn't confirmed until 1992. Theory number 4, evolutionary and neurological hardwiring. The final major theory comes from evolutionary psychology. Maybe werewolf legends are hardwired into human cognition as an evolutionary adaptation. For millions of years, humans and our ancestors were prey animals. We lived in constant fear of large predators, especially pack hunters like wolves. Some researchers argue that predator recognition and fear are so fundamental to primitive evolution that they've shaped our brain structure. The theory is that werewolf legends tap into ancient pre-verbal terror hard-coded in our limbic system. The reason that these legends appear across cultures isn't cultural transmission, it's because all humans share the same evolutionary history and the same neural architecture for predator recognition and fear response. The problem, though, is that this explains why we might have universal predator fears, but it doesn't explain the specific details. Evolution could explain scary wolf monster myths, but it doesn't easily explain the full moon trigger, the silver vulnerability, or the curse transmission, or the transformation rituals. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does any of this actually matter? Why should I spend 20 to 30 minutes diving into werewolf legends? Well, because this is exactly the kind of cross-cultural pattern that reveals something fundamental about human experience that mainstream academia won't take seriously. When you see the same detailed mythology appear independently across isolated civilizations, you're looking at either an impossible coincidence or evidence of shared human experiences. Whether those experiences are psychological, medical, cultural, or biological. And if you've been watching the channel, you know this pattern. In my video on cryptids that turned out to be real, we saw the exact same thing happen with the gorilla, the giant squid, and the Komodo dragon. Scientists dismissed eyewitness accounts as mythology and superstition, right up until they had a dead specimen right in front of them. The refusal to investigate these patterns seriously because they don't fit current paradigms is the same mindset that kept those animals in the myth category for decades or even centuries. Sometimes myth just means we don't understand it yet. So, with all of that said, let's go ahead now and take a look at some specific cases that really make this phenomenon difficult to ignore. Now, theory is one thing, but specific cases are another. Let's take a look at some of the most well-documented, bizarre werewolf incidents that don't fit neatly into any explanation, starting with some more details about our French beast and our Wisconsin sightings. The Beast of Gévaudan, 1764 to 1767. The attacks begin in June 1764, when a young woman tending cattle was killed. Over the next 3 years, the creature killed or wounded over 200 people, with 60 to 100 confirmed deaths. What makes this case so anomalous is that normal wolves don't systematically hunt humans. The creature preferentially attacked women and children, often going for the throat. It killed but often didn't eat the victims, which is abnormal for any predator. Multiple organized hunts with hundreds of participants failed to find it, and when wolves were killed, the attacks continued. On the final kill, the wolf shot by Jean Chastel, they supposedly found human remains in the stomach. The French government documentation on this is extensive. This wasn't folklore, it was a crisis that required military intervention. King Louis XV's correspondence refers to the beast, and official reports detail the attacks, casualties, and failed hunts. Modern explanations suggest a large wolf or a hybrid wolf dog with unusual aggression, possibly trained by a human handler. But that still doesn't account for the systematic human hunting behavior over 3 years or the specific targeting patterns. Wisconsin werewolf sightings, 1936 to present. Linda Godfrey's documentation of the Beast of Bray Road includes dozens of witness reports spanning decades. Here are a few of the key cases. 1936, Mark Shackleman, a night watchman, reported seeing a wolf-headed figure digging in an Indian burial ground. 1989, Lorraine Andreezy, driving home, saw a creature kneeling on the roadside that turned to look at her, wolf-like head, human-like eyes, massive shoulders. 1991, multiple witnesses reported a creature jumping over cars on Highway 89. 1999, hospital employee Dorothy Gibson reported a wolf-like creature running alongside her car at 35 to 40 miles per hour on its hind legs. These witnesses weren't seeking attention. Most were reluctant to report their experiences. Multiple witnesses gave matching descriptions without coordinating their stories, and the physical traces were found but never conclusively identified. The Morbach Monster, 1988. In 1988, U.S. Air Force personnel stationed at Hahn Air Base near Morbach, Germany, reported seeing a large wolf-like creature walking on its hind legs near the base perimeter. The town of Morbach has a legend dating back to the Napoleonic Wars about the last werewolf of Morbach, who was supposedly killed but left a curse. If the candle in the town shrine ever went out, the werewolf would return. On the night of the 1988 sighting, security personnel documented that the shrine candle had gone out. Multiple witnesses, trained military observers, reported the creature. It was investigated, documented, and appeared in official security logs. No physical evidence was recovered. The official explanation was a large dog, but witnesses insisted that what they saw was not a dog. The Benandanti of Friuli, Italy, 1575 to 1650. Now, this case doesn't fit the typical werewolf pattern, but the Benandanti, literally good walkers, were members of a fertility cult in northern Italy who claimed their spirits left their bodies at night in the form of wolves or other animals to fight evil witches and protect crops. The Catholic Inquisition tried them anyway, obviously, documented in historian Carlo Ginzburg's research, the night battles. Multiple accused Benandanti gave matching testimony about their nocturnal spirit battles despite being questioned separately. They described elaborate rituals, specific dates when battles occurred, and consequences if they lost. What makes this fascinating is that these weren't confessions extracted under torture. The Benandanti voluntarily described their experiences to inquisitors, believing the church would recognize them as holy warriors. Their descriptions include out-of-body experiences, transformation into animals, and battles on spiritual planes that had physical consequences. So why would a fertility cult develop werewolf transformation elements identical to malevolent werewolf legends elsewhere in Europe? Modern cases in Eastern Europe. Werewolf beliefs never completely died in rural Eastern Europe. As recently as the 2000s and 2010s, there have been scattered reports of attacks attributed to werewolves in remote areas of Poland, Romania, and Ukraine. These don't make international news because they're dismissed as folklore or misidentified animal attacks, but they represent the continuation of a belief system that's persisted for over 4,000 years. As usual, let's pull everything together at the end of the video and talk about what we actually learned. Pattern 1. Universal cultural presence. Werewolf legends exist on every inhabited continent, in cultures that had no contact with each other dating back at least 4,000 years. These aren't just legends, they share specific details. Transformation triggers, loss of human consciousness, superhuman abilities, silver vulnerability, and curse transmission through bites. Pattern 2. Historical documentation. Medieval European werewolf trials weren't just superstition. They were extensive legal proceedings with documentation, witness testimony, and forensic evidence by the standards of the time. Tens of thousands of people were executed based on werewolf accusations across 2 centuries. Pattern 3. Modern continuity. Werewolf sightings didn't stop when the Enlightenment arrived. They continued into the modern era with reports from credible witnesses, including law enforcement, military personnel, and professionals. These modern accounts share details with historical accounts despite the witnesses often having no knowledge of medieval werewolf lore. And pattern 4. Inadequate explanations. Medical and psychological theories explain individual cases, but they don't account for cultural universality. Warrior cult theories explain some European traditions, but not global patterns. Evolutionary psychology explains general predator fears, but not specific mythological details. Cryptozoological theories account for modern sightings, but require accepting phenomenon outside current scientific paradigms. So here's my take. I think we're looking at multiple overlapping phenomena that all get labeled werewolves. Some cases are medical conditions, rabies, porphyria, clinical lycanthropy. Some of them are psychological delusions. Some are folk memory of warrior cults. Some might be misidentified animals or unknown species. And some remain genuinely unexplained. The mistake is thinking that there has to be one explanation. Reality is complex, but the universal presence of these legends, the specific matching details, and the continuation of sightings into the modern era all suggest that something real, whether medical, psychological, cultural, or zoological, underlies the werewolf phenomenon. And dismissing this as just folklore doesn't make the evidence disappear. The trial records exist. The beast of Gévaudan killed real people. Modern witnesses report real sightings. We can either investigate these patterns honestly, or we can keep pretending that labeling something folklore is an explanation, when it's actually just a category that we use for things we don't understand yet. The pattern should be familiar by now, and if you're familiar with the channel, you've seen it all before. Things get dismissed as impossible or mythological until they're not. The coelacanth was extinct until it wasn't. Giant squids were sailors' tales until we found them. Ball lightning was mass hysteria until we photographed it. In my videos on biblical archaeology, we looked at how ancient texts and historical accounts get dismissed as mythology by academics, only for archaeological evidence to later confirm the details that everyone said were impossible. The same thing happens with ancient cities, with historical figures, with entire civilizations. First it's myth, then it's possible, then it's proven. Maybe werewolves, in some form we don't yet comprehend, belong in that same category of myth that deserves serious investigation. Well, that's it, everybody. Werewolf legends aren't just campfire stories. They're a 4,000-year-old cross-cultural mystery that challenges our assumptions about human history, psychology, and possibly biology. From ancient Mesopotamian demons to medieval European trials to modern Wisconsin sightings. The pattern persists because something real, whether cultural or psychological or otherwise, keeps generating these experiences. This is what Arnie's Brain Train is all about. Taking questions seriously that academics dismiss and following the evidence wherever it leads. I don't care if the answers are comfortable. I do care if they're supported by the facts. So, what do you think? Are werewolves explained by rabies and mental illness? Are they folk memories of ancient warrior cults? Or is there something out there that we still don't understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I do read every one, and the best discussions happen when we engage with the evidence honestly. If you want to verify anything that I've said today, all of my sources are linked down in the pinned comment or in the description below. I encourage you to fact check me, dig into the primary documents, and form your own conclusions. Don't trust me, trust the evidence, see for yourself. If you want to see me improve any aspect of these videos or explore other topics, let me know in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and help this channel grow. The more support I get, the deeper I can dive into these mysteries and the better production quality that I can deliver. Next week, I'll be diving into another topic that deserves some serious investigation, and until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, the world isn't always this simple, but it's always this interesting. I'm Alex Arnold, and this has been Arnie's Brain Train, and I'll see you on the next ride. Bye.